What is the best budget-friendly, easy setup for Milky Way astrophotography? We're going to test three options: a phone, a 14-year-old crop sensor DSLR, and a full-frame entry-level mirrorless camera. We'll pair the cameras with budget lenses, predict how they would perform, and see what actually happens. And honestly, one of these surprises me. It's very easy to get into astrophotography nowadays. All you need is a camera, a lens, and a tripod. That's how I took this time lapse of the Milky Way. You can also stack images to pull out detail. But what if I told you you could also get really good astrophotography photos with just your phone? Or if you wanted slightly better images, you could spend around $300 on a used DSLR and budget lens to get even better images. And how do these options compare with the latest full-frame mirrorless cameras that cost upwards of $2,000? From imaging to tracking, stacking, and processing, getting into astrophotography seems complicated, but it doesn't have to be. This is the third video of the Astrophotography Guide by Deep Sky Detail. Consumer technology, especially for astrophotography, has been improving drastically over the past few years. Let's compare my S24 smartphone to a Canon T4i and Canon R8. The S24 is a couple years old, but it's still a capable smartphone. I'll be using its 23mm lens with a 12 megapixel sensor with small 1.4 micrometer pixels. You can buy a refurbished S24 on Amazon for around $300 to $400. It's the underdog in this competition. Maybe it will surprise us. The T4i is a DSLR camera that came out 14 years ago, believe it or not. It has an 18 megapixel sensor with 4.3 micrometer size pixels. You can purchase decent T4is used for around $200. The R8 goes for around $1,600 new, but you can pick them up used for around $1,000 if you're lucky. Now, let me tell you a secret. Come closer. Closer. Whoa, too close. Give a man some space. Now, don't tell anyone, but DSLRs and mirrorless cameras also need lenses. You subscribe for hot takes like that, I know. You don't have to thank me for those hot takes. I would get embarrassed because I'm so modest. There are a couple of very good lens options for someone interested in Milky Way photography that don't break the bank. The first is the Rokinon 14mm f2.8 lens. It's famous in the Astro community for being just a good wide field lens. There can be problems with these lenses, including quality control issues, but we'll get into that in a bit. Having said that, it's very budget friendly and I got mine used for around $130. You can get them new for around $300. The next option, and I know you might not have considered it, but it's the Canon 85mm f1.8 USM lens. They go for around $400 refurbished or around $300 used. You could probably get them cheaper, and you may be like, hey, that's not really a good lens for astrophotography. But hear me out. This is a decent older lens that is representative of lenses people already have in their collection. A person could go out tonight if there are no clouds, put on a lens similar to this onto their DSLR or mirrorless camera and see what they get. I think they'd be amazed at what they can actually image. Now, there will be problems with this lens, but we'll get into that later. These comparisons are totally different. A phone versus a mirrorless camera with a wide field lens versus a DSLR with a medium telephoto lens is not a fair comparison. Let's just predict the signal, for example. The amount of signal that a pixel receives is going to be based on three main things: aperture, focal length, and pixel size. Assuming all three setups have similar quantum efficiency and are imaging similar parts of the sky, we can predict which setup will give us the best bang for our buck in terms of signal using this formula. As long as we know the pixel size and f ratio of the lens we're using, we can learn a lot. The Canon R8 has a focal ratio of 2.8. This tells us information about its aperture and focal length. Each pixel is 5.98 micrometers long, creating an area of 35.8 square micrometers. For every unit of radiance coming from the sky, we should expect about 53.74 photons worth of signal in a 15-second image, or 3.58 photoelectrons per second to heat each pixel on average. We can then do the same thing for the T4i and the smartphone. When we take into account the f ratio and pixel size of each setup, the T4i should give us the most signal each second for any given portion of the sky, thanks in part to the faster f1.8 lens. The R8 would win if I used the 85mm f1.8 lens with it, but that's not the setup I'm using. The phone performs the worst by far thanks to its small pixel size. What this is telling us is that we should expect the phone images to be quite a bit noisier than the dedicated cameras. The dedicated cameras are going to get more signal, but is this really true? Phone cameras have progressed so much in the past 10 years. So I'm going to be shooting wide open for all of these tests, but you should know that with imperfect optics, like the lenses I'm using, shooting wide open at the widest aperture introduces problems. With my Rokinon lens, I get pretty bad distortions in the left top corner and softer overall stars. Soft stars and chromatic aberration affect my 85mm lens when wide open as well, and I actually expect the smartphone to suffer the least from these issues because the sensor is so small and the lens is probably already well corrected. Again, because it is so small. But we'll see. Now, there is a huge caveat to all of this, of course, and that's quantum efficiency numbers are probably slightly different for each setup. So these numbers should give us just a ballpark figure of what we should expect. Let's head out to a dark site. Alright, so I'm all set up here at a portal 3-ish zone. Sorry about the image quality, I'll try to brighten it in editing. It's just a GoPro and it is very dark out here. I don't want to mess up my night vision. The stars are providing a good amount of light, so I really don't even need this red light to see things in front of me. The Milky Way is quite complex and very visible, even though it is just risen. I've got the T4i pointing at the Rho Ophiuchi cloud complex. The 85mm focal length and crop sensor pair well with this target. My phone is taking a picture of the Milky Way's core. It's using the app called ProShot to take raw images, and the R8 is trying to take into view as much of the Milky Way as possible with its wider 14mm lens. So let's talk about field of view for a second, or how much of the sky you'll be imaging. The field of view is going to depend on two main things: your focal length and your sensor size. Not the pixel size, but the sensor size. The easiest way to get predictions for what your field of view looks like is in Stellarium. In the top right-hand corner is a plugin for framing. Click the wrench icon to put in your sensor size and telescope. I put my lenses in the telescope section and leave the lenses section for things like focal reducers and Barlows. All you then have to do is input the sensor's information, so the lens's focal length, the aperture, and save them, and then click on the sensor icon. You can then toggle through different lens and sensor combinations to find out what each one would look like when you're looking at any given part of the sky. The Rokinon with the R8 would give me a huge field of view, While the T4i and the 85mm lens is great for large or deep sky objects like Rho Ophiuchi, which I'm imaging in this video, or other objects like the Andromeda Galaxy, the Orion Nebula, and other large-scale structure. There's another problem that we haven't discussed with field of view. I'll talk about that in a minute, but first let's look at the results. So intuitively, I think that the R8 should give us the best results. It's the best camera out of the three after all, but let's look at a single 15-second subframe straight from the sensor. I have done no editing to this. You can see that you can actually see the Milky Way fairly well. The stars look good. They're a little bit egg-shaped. But that's okay, except for this area in the top left corner. They're really distorted. It's not good. And that's the major problem with this lens. Usually the 14mm Rokinon is a great budget option, but you'll probably have some problems shooting wide open in one of your corners like I have here. Some people get lucky and have good stars across the field of view, but I think that's a bit rare. There is some noise in the sky background and quite a bit of noise in the trees where it is really dark, but overall I'm impressed. I took about 40 minutes worth of 15-second images with this framing and stacked them, and then processed the stacked images in Serial and GIMP. I also got about 15 minutes of just the core. I'll show you what those stacked images look like soon. So here is a single 5-second exposure from the T4i. As you can see, we're zoomed in a lot more into this area of the Milky Way. So one thing about that is you can't take as long exposures before you get star trails. And you have to reset the camera to get everything in the field of view every few minutes. This is a time lapse of about an hour's worth of those images. You can see that the stars are quickly moving across the field of view, and then I have to reset the tripod manually. Additionally, every time I reset the field of view is slightly different. You see how these stars look like they're in the 10 o'clock position at the start? After about an hour, they're like at the 11 o'clock position. The tripod isn't rotating, and even if it were, it's not aligned with the Earth's axis of rotation. So you get field rotation. This is going to limit how much you can actually stack without needing to crop. Brightening up the raw image, we can also see blue halos around some of the stars. This is chromatic aberration. There would be less of it if I stopped down the lens to around f4. There's also a lot of field curvature. The stars are kind of curving at the edges, and it makes it look like the stars are rotating in a circle. So it's not perfect, and I got about an hour's worth of 5-second frames. I'll show the final stacked processed image at the end of this video. So here is the raw, unedited 15-second phone image. As you can see, it's quite dark compared to the R8 image, and we expected that. Each pixel is only getting around 7% of the light that the R8 pixel is getting. So if we brighten up one of the raw images, it is really, really noisy. Again, that's because the signal each pixel collects is so much lower than that for the R8. For the most part, the stars look pretty good, except in one of the corners. They're a little bit oblong shaped, but it's a decent image. For each setup, I took dark and flat frames and stacked the images in Sequator. It's such a good program. I have a tutorial on stacking and processing images in Serial from my last Astro guide video. The general idea is similar when using Sequator for stacking, except that Sequator is so much easier to use, and you can freeze the foreground. I then used Serial to do initial edits, which included using StarNet to separate the stars from the background, and finished up processing in GIMP. I tried my best to make each image look as good as possible. So let's take a look. Here's the first framing with the R8. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Here's the core. You can really see how the stars become so distorted at the edge of the field of view. It's not perfect, but there is decent signal and detail in the core, including Rho Ophiuchi. I really like how the core came out with this one. I processed the T4i a couple of times. This is the stacked result. It's kind of noisy, but you can clearly see the dust lanes here. Rho is bright, but it isn't as bright as the Milky Way's core, so it makes sense that the noise is a bit stronger than the R8 for this image. And the chromatic aberration is bad. I also tried cleaning it up with some noise reduction, but I kind of like the dirtier version better. It seems more real and not as overprocessed. I'd like to know what you think about it too. And now for the moment of truth. Can my stacked smartphone images beat the R8? Maybe the predictions will be wrong. Maybe smartphones are just so great now that they can replace dedicated cameras. Well, let's see. Well, here it is. It's okay. I wouldn't say that it's better than the R8, but it's honestly not bad. I like the framing of this one better than the R8, but that's not the camera's fault. That's really my fault. I really had to clean this image up with noise reduction techniques, but even so, it's still grainier due to having so much less signal. Rho Ophiuchi here is much less detailed than the R8 image or the T4i. It was a lot more difficult to process this image, and there are some funky gradients that I can't explain, but all in all, it is amazing that this image came from a 3-year-old smartphone. So what would I recommend? Well, I do think that the R8 image was the easiest to process, thanks in part to the wider focal length, allowing longer exposures, and the fact that the sensor noise was lower than the T4i. Having said that, an older DSLR with a budget lens would probably be the most bang for your buck. Buying used, you could pair the Rokinon 14mm with the T4i and be around $300 to $400. So that's about a third of the price of the newest smartphones, and you would get better images. Now, if you're all about convenience and you're okay with noisier images, then the smartphone is probably the right choice. And honestly, I think that's the coolest part of modern astrophotography, is that you don't need expensive gear to capture the night sky anymore. So which setup or combination of the three did you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Did one of the results surprise you? If you're new to astrophotography, I've got 2 other videos dedicated to helping you get started that go more in depth using just a phone, or one that goes over all the beginning astrophotography terms. All of them. Check out this playlist if you want more. Or check out this video that the algorithm recommends. Thanks for watching.